What's up everybody, Alex Comstock here with WhitetailDNA, and in this video I'm out checking a couple normal trail cameras today, and I wanted to talk about cell cams versus normal trail cameras, non-cells. Cell cams have just like taken the world by storm in the deer hunting world here the last few years. I mean, as prices have come down on cell cams and they're just a lot more accessible, I just want to take this video and talk about normal cameras versus cell cams and kind of compare and contrast them, why you could run, what the pros and cons are of them essentially, and just kind of talk about them here. So I'm just getting up to my camera here, and the first thing I want to talk about, we're gonna just hammer down on cell cams here quickly. Cell cams are a phenomenal tool to get that real-time data. Super hard to beat, and there's nothing that beats getting a picture of a buck, knowing exactly where he is right then. It can help shape how you hunt, where you hunt. Like for instance, a really common scenario is getting pictures of a buck headed back to bed in the morning and knowing that he's close, probably bedded, and if it's in like daylight, you probably should hunt there in the evening, or where he's coming out of that bedded area, stuff like that. And cell cams are just a great tool. They've come down, like I said, a lot in price. Years ago they used to be $300, $400, $500 for a cell cam, and there are still some that are like that, but we run a ton of reveals, by Tacticam, and they're, right around $100. They work great. The cell cam plans are, rather affordable, especially when you have friends to split them with. And, cell cams have just, I think they've really changed the deer hunting industry as a whole over the course of the last, decade, I guess. And there's a lot of ways that they're helpful, but there are some few detriments to cell cams that are big time, that I feel are important to talk about. The first one being that, let's say a cell cam isn't getting a buck showing up for a couple days in a row. Like with cell cams, everything's so instant, where it's like, if I haven't got a picture of a big buck the last few days, you feel like that spot sucks. And that's just like, I always think about a normal camera. If you go into a spot, say a trail cam's been sitting there for a month, and you check it and you've got a handful of pictures of big bucks coming through over the course of the month, you're probably pretty pumped, right? But with a cell cam, if you don't get a picture of a big buck like right then and there, it's easier to write a spot off. It's just, instant gratification. It's easy to do. And it's something that I feel like I just want to stress to you, that if you're not getting pictures of a buck or deer constantly, doesn't mean the spot sucks. I mean, yeah, you can go in and shift it, but just something to be thinking about with cell cams. Another negative is that, they do ride the line of ethical sometimes, and that I don't necessarily struggle with that, because I know how I hunt, and I would never do anything that would ride that line. But I can see where a hunter gets a picture of a buck headed, say, east towards the stand. You get all your stuff ready, you sprint in the woods, hop in the tree that he was headed towards, and bam, 20 minutes later he walks by. That's just, that's how I feel. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it does ride that line of, I've never gotten a cell cam picture of a buck and sprinted out to the woods to go hunt him in a different tree. I'm sure people do that all the time, but the same can be said as of like, it's a little bit different scenario. But the buck that I killed in Minnesota last year, I had cell cam pics of him for like a week straight, and I was out of town. And when I got back, I knew exactly where to sit, opposed to going around checking cameras, So I think that's a little bit different, but I knew where to sit because he had been on camera so often, and I ended up shooting that buck, and it worked out. And I think cell cams definitely were a big factor in my shooting of that buck. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover with cell cams. Obviously, they're a great tool. They are something that, like I said, has changed how we hunt. They can be rather affordable now. But I think when it comes to normal trail cameras or non-cells, there's still a place for these. And I wanted to talk about trail cameras as a whole now. Like today I'm out checking, like I said, I'm checking 3 cameras today. The first thing I want to talk about is just that, like, with cell cams, kind of take away that excitement, that anticipation, right? Like right now I'm so excited. I've got 3 SD cards to swap. I'm going to go home, put them in my computer, and I've got all this anticipation to see, like, what have I been missing out there? The cell cams show me so much, but these spots that I don't have cell cams, I'm like, should I have been hunting there? It's like, it really is like, there's still that, I still miss that feeling of checking cameras and anticipation, and just, I think that's something to not to not be forgotten. And if you run a bunch of, like for me, between our team, me, Garrett, Luke, and Caleb, I think we have over 20 cell cams out in the woods. So that's a lot for, we're 4 guys and we all kind of do everything together. I mean, especially me, Garrett, and Luke, because we're all here in Minnesota, but it's still like, that's great and we cover a lot. But I would still, if you run a lot of cell cams, I would highly suggest or highly encourage still running normal cams in areas. It gives you that anticipation, and now you can cover more ground. What I like about our tactics now is we put our cell cams in our best spots where we anticipate there being the best movement for bucks or big bucks, and then we stick these normal trail cameras in spots that are maybe under the radar or spots that we don't have as much faith in, and it can lead you to surprises, right? So like, and I love having now, what I do with normal trail cameras is I like to keep them in my truck or in my hunting backpack, and anytime I can just toss one up, not have to worry about it, mark it on Onyx. And I've got a whole bunch of normal trail cameras that I just keep on me all the time, and I use them as a tool now. It's a little bit different than I used to pre-cell cams, where they were my main information gatherer, and now these normal trail cameras or these non-cells are like, I can just throw one up, mark it, forget about it, go check it, and or another thing that I find useful is to use your cell cams for your real-time data. So like cell cams, you put them in areas for you to figure out where to hunt this year, and normal trail cameras you can put up in spots, leave them sit all year, check them in the off season, and that can help determine places to go next year. Maybe you can get intel on a property, maybe you're out of town or you're somewhere where you're typically not going to go to hunt. Throw up a camera, leave it sit all year, check it at the end of the season, and maybe that can give you some information on where to hunt for the following season. So these are just some things when it comes to non-cells and cell cams. With cell cams, a couple more things here that I'm just kind of thinking of. Obviously it creates a bad habit of just checking your phone constantly. Anyone out there, I'm sure your significant other can attest that there's nothing worse than, at night going to bed and your phone is just dinging like crazy, or it gives you another reason to be on your phone. Maybe that's a little bit of a negative of cell cams, but overall, I think cell cams are an important tool, but I think non-cell cams are as well, and I really encourage you to use them in combination, to not forget about normal trail cameras, because they are important just as cell cams are, and cell cams aren't the end-all be-all. Don't let a cell cam, what kind of gets lost is with cell cams especially, is you lose that just going and hunting. I've got a couple spots this year where the cell cams have been dead, so I'm just blitzing in, hanging the saddle, going into spots that, I don't have any cameras, and that can be lost because people will just hunt where their cell cams are, and if the cell cams aren't dead, or the cell cams are dead, they're not hunting. So those are my thoughts on cell cams versus normal cameras. I hope there's a few tips or a few thoughts I have in here that could help you. I just wanted to get this video out. A lot of cool stuff coming up here on the channel. I appreciate you watching. If you do me a big favor, hit that like and subscribe button below. It always helps me out. We're just continuing to try to keep growing and pushing out great content. So plenty of content coming. Appreciate you watching. I'll see you here on the next one.